After the medieval warm period, we had the Little Ice Age, and then the warming we've had since the 19th century. I accept the planet has warmed, and I rejoice that it has warmed, because as with the medieval warm period, it's been hugely beneficial to mankind. I mentioned that I'm Canadian. The entire political, economic, and cultural development of my country has taken place during this warming period. Nova Scotia, 1848, the first responsible government in the British Empire. 1867, the birth of the Dominion of Canada. My entire nation has been the beneficiary of this warming trend. There's a statistic that some of you may be familiar with that says something like 90% of the population of Canada lives within 100 miles of the US border. You know why that is? Because you go beyond that, it's freezing cold. When you revolutionaries and us loyalists had carved up the continent, we should have done it north-south down the Mississippi. I was talking to Professor Van Kooten yesterday, who spoke yesterday, and he said he'd moved from Alberta to British Columbia because it was warmer. That's like moving from Louisiana to Mississippi for the skiing. So 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the US border. If we hadn't had the warming of the last century and a half, 99.9% of Canadians would be living within 100 yards of the US border. It'd just be like one long condo development strung along the 49th parallel. That would be it. So when I first saw Michael Mann's hockey stick 15 years ago, I reacted much as Jonathan Jones, professor of physics at Oxford University, did. If you've never heard of this Oxford University outfit, it's apparently some wacky fringe, Coke-funded denialist front group where you can download a diploma for 17 shillings and threepence halfpenny. No one takes it seriously. Anyway, Professor Jones says, quote, "Like many people, I was dragged into this by the hockey stick. I was looking up some minor detail about the medieval warm period and discovered this weird parallel universe of people who apparently didn't believe it had happened, and even more bizarrely appeared to believe that essentially nothing had happened in the world before the 20th century. The hockey stick is an extraordinary claim which requires extraordinary evidence, so I started reading around the subject. And it soon became clear that the first extraordinary thing about the evidence for the hockey stick was how extraordinarily weak it was, and the second extraordinary thing was how desperate its defenders were to hide this fact. I'd always had an interest in pathological science, and it looked like I might have stumbled across a really good modern example," unquote. I agree with that. For a generation of people across the Western world, Michael Mann abolished not only the medieval warm period, but the entire concept of natural climate variability. If you talk to some of these young activists who've been force-fed this stuff since kindergarten, they don't even believe, they don't know what natural climate variability is. So I called the hockey stick fraudulent because it is in every sense, both in its construction and in the uses to which it's been put by the IPCC and Al Gore and every schoolhouse and most governments throughout the Western world.